choose you. For example, every Camino I've chosen to do this far has its own story. You must put 2 stamps every day just to indicate that you have been to the Camino. So I did it in May, which is a nice month to do the Camino. I tell you that if you go to Camino, you must taste all the food, there were some people from my institute, some people from University of Seville. So we were a really variety group of pilgrims with their mobile phone. They use their GPS to keep track of their way.
Hello, pilgrims. This is Efrain from Camino Wonder. We are here today with Francisco. We are doing our episode number 5. And so he has been walking several Caminos. So we're going to be talking to him about those experiences. Mm-hmm. And so we hope that you enjoy our program today. So hello, Francisco. So you were telling us before the recording started that you have done several Caminos. What are those Caminos?
Yeah. So my name is Francisco. I'm a doctor. I'm 39, but turning 40 this October, and I'm from Sevilla, Spain. And I've done so far 4 Caminos. I've done French twice, one from Ponferrada. Next one, I did it from Sarria, which is a town which is 100 kilometers, 62 miles from Santiago. So it's the minimal to get the Compostela. I think we will talk about Compostela later, no?
Yeah.
I've also done the Primitive Way, which is my favorite for all of them, and also the Portuguese Camino Central Way, which is from Tui to Santiago.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. So tell us, Francisco, regarding the French Camino, what you would say were the main difference between the one that you did from Ponferrada and the one that you did from Sarria?
Well, the most different was because when I did from Ponferrada, I was 15, so I was really a kid. And when I did from Sarria, I did it when I was 36 or more or less. So my vital experience were completely different because when you are 15, you are an adolescent, you only want to have fun, you want to get out of home. So it's a really grateful experience. But when I did the first Camino from Sarria, it was on a completely different way. For example, when I was doing the Camino from Ponferrada, I was with a church, and we had already a priest. We were an organized group with the local church there in Seville. So it was pretty fun because we were a lot of pilgrims. We were near 100 pilgrims doing the Camino.
Okay.
So imagine all that boys and girls, all that kids doing the Camino. It was really, really fun. But I was a kid completely.
And do you remember how many kilometers do you walk from Ponferrada to Santiago?
From Ponferrada, it's 200 kilometers, a little more. It's nearly in miles. I think it's 124, more or less, maybe a little more miles.
Okay.
I remember Ocebeiro, one of the stages, which is one of the most difficult stages I've done so far. I think I was 15, now I'm nearly 14, 25 years later, I still remember Ocebeiro. So you can remember how difficult it was, but it was satisfying getting to that stage.
Wow. And any good memory that you have at that experience when you were 15?
Well, talking about the Camino, I think maybe it was the first time I was so much time out of home, because when you have to do 200 miles, you have to stay for nearly 2 weeks. So it was the first time I was so far from my parents, and also we didn't have mobile phone. I think that's a good thing, because you don't keep looking for tips. You only have well, it was, I think, 1999. Well, a lot of time, and I didn't have any mobile phone. So when I had to talk with my parents, I had to talk them by phone cabin.
Okay.
I think that maybe young people don't know what's that. And I remember a car in which
Okay.
you can put your money and you can talk to a phone which is not a mobile. So it was really a very great experience because you don't have, for example, if you go now on the Camino, you see a lot of pilgrims with their mobile phone. They use their GPS to keep track of their way. And with no GPS, it's a more fun experience.
Yeah, that's correct. Nowadays, the people use their mobile phones, and you have a lot of application that you can track your Camino, like you say. So that's really cool. And then, so when you work with all those kids at that time, so who were your company? I know that you mentioned that you work with a local church, but the company, the representative, were from the church or were from the school,
Well,
or
we
were
have
parents as well?
okay. If I regard correctly, there was we were a group from the church, and it was my institute had a call with this church, so there were some people from my institute, some people from University of Seville, so we were a really variety group, you know. And I remember going with two of my best friends. I lost track with one of them, but I still keep talking even after all those years with that friend with my friend Alberto. He also studied medicine, but he studied radiologist, so
Okay.
really different for me.
Okay. And how was them? Do you remember the moment when you all arrived to Santiago when you were a kid? How was that moment?
Well, we didn't even believe that because every Camino I've done so far has its own story. So when I was a kid, I remember how big it was Santiago. I was never to Santiago before, so it's a pretty cool city because it has a really an architecture very representative of Galicia of those days, and also the cathedral was completely different from now because they have changed. There have been some changes in the cathedral recently because of the new Jacobi, which was in 2021. So I remember, well, it was completely different from Seville because the north and the south of Spain, usually their architecture, it doesn't have many to compare to the south.
Oh, really interesting. And then the Camino, the people that you you say that you were around two weeks by that time when you were kid walking the Camino.
Mhm.
And so I imagine that you stay on albergues at that time. Was albergues where you stay?
Yes, I really changed because when I was a kid, I didn't have any money at all.
Okay.
Well, I must tell you, indeed, I was with a backpack, and the church had a bus which transported the bags from one state to another. But we
Okay.
already stayed at albergues at Polideportivo. How do you say it in English?
Uh, yeah, polideportivo or like sports centers.
Sports centers, yeah, sports centers. Also, remember sleeping twice in a church. It was a really spiritual Camino. It's not, well, recently, I must tell you that with age, you get more curious about what you do. So I've done it by hotels and hostels because I like to sleep in a bed because when you
Okay.
get to your stage, you are completely broken. You need to sleep. You need to recover. And imagine when you are 15, you can sleep with a lot of people. They snort, they smell. We are, well, you can't even have a shower properly because if you are in a sports center, for example, I remember having a shower with with I don't know
With
how,
a host.
with a hose. So it was completely different experience. It was funny when I remember, but I wouldn't do it that way nowadays because if you want to have some days, you want to be as recovered as possible and as quiet as possible. being to an albergue means, well, it's more fun because you, well, you can even get there even if you don't stay. For example, in some of the caminos I've done so far, I did it with another groups. The Camino from Sarria was organized. Later, if you want, I can tell you the story. I went with an enterprise. Also, they carry the bags and they keep all my well, they hire all the hotels and hostels, no? And they transport an extra bag, and you can have your backpack. So if you want, you can change your clothes when you get to the stage. You go with pilgrim clothes during the Camino, and if you want to take a beer, go to the bar after all that, you can change and feel like a normal person. You don't have to wear all the pilgrim clothes.
Yeah, so that's really good. And through the way, when you have it, you remember, so the last Camino that you did, the one that you did from Sarria.
Mhm.
So when you were walking, uh, so do you remember where you stopped to have a lunch? Do you remember how those places were?
Well, I already looked for some of the places I stayed, but it all changes in 20 years. It changes a lot. I remember some of the old structure. For example, the stone bridge. There is a stone bridge within, I think, is between Sarri, no, um, between Melide and Arzua. I
Okay,
remember there was a little bridge which is very. You must see that if you do the French Camino, you will see that bridge. And I remember it was completely the same bridge, even all those years. And it was like, oh man, I was here 20 years ago, and it's all the same. It was
okay.
pretty funny to see that bridge all the same from all these years.
Any restaurants that you find through the way, so that
No, restaurant, no. I think that I was going with the church, so I didn't have much money. Only
okay,
what my parents gave me to me, and also the restaurant changed completely. I can recommend some of the restaurants. For example, in Melide, you must taste the octopus. There are two great um, bars that offer a variety of octopus, uh,
okay.
and they are really
Octopus
tasty.
a la gallega.
Sí, pulpos a la gallega, sí. Pulpo a feira.
Okay, yeah, the seafood over there is great.
Yeah, I must tell you that if you go to Camino, you must taste all the food, all their drink, because when there is a Jacobo also, there is a special way of doing their beer, Estrella Galicia, which is a very famous beer from Galicia.
Okay,
They also collaborate with all the all the thing of Camino de Santiago, and they even have a special beer that they made for when there is a Jacobello, which is Estrella del Camino. But if it's not a Jacobello year, you won't get to taste that beer.
okay, I didn't know about that. And then when you go the Camino from Ponferrada and the one that you did from Sarria, because I know that you are closer to Santiago,
Mhm.
the demarcation, so the posts, the signs, you see every often. But how about the from Ponferrada to Sarria? Do you see all those signs too?
Well, I don't remember it that well because I was with a really great group and we were divided because there was a guide who was with the first part of the group. I mean, they were from guys from the University of Seville. They were collaborators to the church, and also I think maybe they got paid their trip just because they were taking care of us of our children. And I remember there were a pair of penguins which were at the front, and they were the one who marked the right way. But if you ask me about that, I must tell you, for example, I did the primitive Camino
Okay,
in 2022. Okay,
okay,
it's really recently. It's 2 years ago from now. I did it in May, which is a nice month to do the Camino. Take care if you are allergic to plants because there is a lot of plants in the Camino.
okay,
And I remember perfectly that there was some time in which the guide was really difficult to follow because, for example, The shell, you know that if you are in Galicia, you must follow the tiny part of the shell. But if you are outside of Galicia, you must follow the big part. For example, in this, when you
Okay.
are at Galicia, you must go this way.
Okay.
But if you are outside of Galicia, you must follow. Okay,
Okay.
I think
Didn't
that
know about that. So
I think that this way
interesting.
is more graphic.
But there were post signs in the primitive way.
Yeah, there were some percent, but there were parts of the Camino. Well, they are trying to restore it recently, and so they don't have everything um, as completely done as the French way. The French way is really, I think, is really difficult to get lost. You can get lost because if you don't pay attention to the Camino, you can miss a sign or so. But I must insist in the primitive way, which is from Oviedo to Santiago, 300 kilometers, okay, nearly 200 miles. It's really easy to get lost because maybe there is some pretty dense distance between those signs, and if you don't follow an APP like Buen Camino or Bronce, which is really well known, you can get lost because these they are not as well marked as of other caminos. For example, the Portuguese also is really well signed.
Okay. Okay. And then, so how you reoriented when you get lost when you were doing that primitive Camino?
You take out usually when you have done enough caminos or you have done some days of the camino, you don't have to do 4 caminos like me. um, you know where there must be a sign. It's like, well, I think the last sign was nearly 50 meters ago. I think there must be some signal around here. You, I mean, you get used to the way it's signed.
Okay.
But I take out the APP. There are some mobile apps. How do you say apps?
Apps.
Apps. You get some mobile apps that in which you can take out, and they are really useful because it gives you where is the correct route. For example, if you go the Portuguese way, is in red. I remember the French way is in orange. So it gives you the your sign where are you in that moment and where is the correct path of the Camino. So it's really easy to reorientate if you, well, it's a try and error process, but you can get reoriented really easy.
Okay, that's good. And then there were a lot of people walking the primitive way when you did it 2 years ago.
No, the true thing is I really appreciate that Camino because there weren't as much of other Camino. For example, if I remember correctly, maybe the most walked Camino is the French way. In months like July and August, there can be a lot of people, and it seems like we say in Spain, a romería, in which you
Okay.
get a lot of people, and maybe you can go in a commercial area of your city, and it's the same. There are a lot of people. It's really you get. I think you can lose part of the essential of the Camino. Portuguese has a little less people, but also there are some part because you share in the Portuguese way, the central way. There is a path with each other with the Camino de Fatima, which is another route of peregrination,
Okay.
which leads from Santiago to Fatima Church, which is
Okay.
in Portugal,
In Portugal.
and it's also a really frequent Camino. But the primitive Camino, especially from the Oviedo to Melide, because the primitive Camino leads you to Melide, which is a town really near to Santiago. I think it's 50 kilometers more or less from Santiago when you get to Melide.
Okay.
And it's really, you can go really alone. I remember one of the first stages. in which I walked nearly 15 kilometers with only seeing local people, no pilgrim at all. And I think that's a good point because
Okay.
if you go with a lot of people, you won't, well, you won't get all of the Camino that is, you won't get all what you need from the Camino.
Okay. And the one that you did, a primitive Camino, how you made to do the launches? Because I imagine it's not that commercial like the other ones.
Mhm.
So where you stop to do launches were places to go, or you have your launch with you?
Well, for example, um, let me think a minute about it because, well, when I did the primitive Camino, which is from Oviedo, I already look in the official Camino. I mean, if you look, if you do the Camino, if you do one of the official Caminos, which are maybe the English Camino, the Portuguese Camino, the French Camino, the primitive Camino, the Sanabres Camino. Those are Caminos that, well, the Via de la Plata Camino, those are Caminos that are official and you get an accreditation of completing them, which
Okay.
is the Compostela, no?
Okay.
When you, then the first day you get um, your accreditation, you must put a stamp every day. Uh, if you do less than 200 kilometers, you must put two stamps every day just to accredit that you have been to the Camino. So,
Okay.
and also, when you get to the pilgrim office, they ask you to give your accreditation, and depending on the stamp you have, give you one Camino order. They are the official. I mean, the French, the Portuguese. When I did the primitive way, I was finishing my studies as internal medicine doctor,
Okay.
which is my second specialty. I had 2 weeks before finishing, and that's why I think it was so special for me, the primitive Camino, because, well, when I was doing my specialty, I had to treat a lot of people with coronavirus. It was really an stressful residency. And the thing is, I did the primitive Camino. I already changed my mobile phone number. I use a completely new one, and I try to be as alone as possible. So that's why I choose the primitive Camino. 2 weeks.
Okay. But then where you used to eat during the
Ah,
Camino?
okay. Sorry, to the point. There are some official stages. If you look at every Camino pass there is on the internet, there are some official towns which are a little bigger than the other ones. I mean, for example, Salas, Grandas de Salime, there are some towns which are nearly 3 to 4,000 people. Tineo also, they
Okay.
have they have already um, enough restaurants, bars, and also if you don't want to keep to the main stages, there is also a lot of albergues, and in albergues, some of them they treat you to food. Okay, for example, I remember one of the stages near. I don't remember where it was. It was the previous to Grandas de Salime. There was only this albergue hostel, and they have a cafeteria in the basement, so you can get to you can have a really nice meal. But if you go to a burger, you can also, there's a lot of supermarkets on the Camino. Maybe you have to carry some food with you, because in some of the stages of the primitive Camino, you can travel for nearly 10, 12, and there is no other bar in all the Camino. When you are getting to Galicia, when you are near to Galicia, there is plenty of offer in bars and restaurants. But before you get, when you are in Asturias, some of the stations there is a little. they lack some restaurant. But if you use some of the apps, they give you instruction from when to get some hotels and bars.
Okay, that's good. And then when you stay on the primitive way, where do you sleep? You sleep in the hotels or in albergues?
Yeah, only I work in hotel for the most part, and in albergue only once. I think that I only sleep in albergues when I was 15. Now I prefer
Okay.
the other way. Well, you get some people say that you get lost some of the spiritual way of the Camino, but that's a choice because it depends on how you want to do the Camino. I really wanted a Camino in which I wanted to rest. I wanted to be alone. If you go by albergues, it's pretty funny, but it doesn't matter. For example, I remember making a group there in the Camino. People are really open in the Camino. I remember there were people from Valencia, people from Tarragona, people from Catalonia, people from well, there were two English guys. There was also an American girl. So we did a really nice group.
Okay.
And when it was dinner time, we all got to the albergue, and maybe we share some of the food we had bought before in the supermarket.
Yeah, and also in my opinion, yes, I know that you have the two ways to do the Camino. You stay in an albergue, or you just stay in
Mhm.
pre-plans, plans with include all the hotels. But the essence of the Camino is when you are walking the Camino, most of it. So once you're walking, you appreciate so much about the scenes that you see around, plus the people that are walking the Camino.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because maybe well I think we haven't talked about this before, but um, the Camino is rather um, is a experience which is I think the Camino choose you. For example, every Camino I've chosen to do this far has its own story. I remember, for example, when I did it from Saria, it was a friend of mine who wanted to do the Camino. It was a Jacobeo year, and he said, "Oh, I want to get the Compostela and try a Camino and try an easy one." But in the end, he got injured doing the Tukal, which is in Marruecos,
Okay.
and I had to do this Camino alone. So um, the Camino isn't about completing stages. I know that some people, for example, I remember when I was doing the primitive Camino, that there were a group of Argentinian people from Argentina, and they had a band, and they did only part of the Camino. They were most turisgrino.
Okay.
So it's not about completing. The best part of the Camino is to give time to you and give quality time with you. Um, that is a really in nowadays it's a really gift, and I recommend, as I did the primitive Camino, changing your number. Don't get too much to social media and to redes sociales
Okay.
because you want to enjoy the Camino. This nature, the environment is beautiful. There is the sporty time in which you have um, uh, to try yourself because um, you have to. You can nobody can walk on you. I mean, it's you who has to take the walk. You won't get anyone to walk for you. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like cooking. You can get a call, call an Uber, and they give you food. But this you need to do your preparations. You need to do all the camino, and you are the one who has to take from one stage to another, and you have to enjoy the stage. The Camino is not about getting to another stage and to say to someone, "Oh, I've been to Melilla, I've been to Porto Marín. Oh, they're so beautiful." No, Camino is about walking, about knowing each other, know the people in the Camino because there are a lot of stories. We could be talking about this for ages. There's a lot of stories: broken heart, family problems. Um diseases. Well, we can talk this for ages.
Yeah, everyone that have their own reason to do their Camino,
Yeah.
and all of the reasons are valid. And I would say, that's my opinion, that
Hmm.
the Camino is for everybody, and at
Yes.
any point of their life, they need to do at least one of the Caminos because it's a
Yes.
great experience.
Yes. For example, my friend Santiago has done this May from Roma to Santiago, which is the one of the most old caminos. And he got from Italy to France, and he got from Pyrenees,
Okay.
and he joined the French way. And
Wow, that's a very long distance.
he is 60, I think, 60 years old. He is nearly to take his jubilation.
Wow, that's
He's nearly to
amazing.
retire.
Yeah, when we were walking the Camino last year, the Costa Portuguese, at the
Hmm.
middle of the way, we found a guy that he was walking. Well, he was already a senior person. He was probably around his 70s. And he
70s
was walking from Italy as well.
from Italy.
And he was in really good shape.
Wow.
So,
You're completely right. That's the Camino. You have a lot of story. I already meet some of people and really young people. I remember, for example, this girl from France. We were from a high school of France, and these girls were doing the Camino from Sarria, and they were on the young, and they were singing a lot. That was really joyful because we knew they were near because they were singing all the time.
yeah, that's true. And when I was doing also my Camino, I
Yeah.
was finding that most of the people that you find around you, they are all happy. And
Yes.
because what they are doing, because nobody's telling them, you have to do the Camino. Everybody choose to do their Camino. And even they are feeling pain sometimes because they have the blister or they have something or the knee or something that they are hurting. They are still with a smile on their faces.
Yeah, I think there is a feeling of success which only gives you the Camino. We haven't talked about this, but when you get to Santiago, there is a lot of different feelings. First, for example, when I did the Camino from Serbia, I already thought, well, I'm already to Santiago, but I can keep walking, and I'm going to finish now.
Yeah,
But also, when I did the primitive way, which was 2 weeks, I was really exhausted, and it was really a joyful feeling because uh, I did it.
yeah,
You know that feeling because you've done the Camino, and the coast Portuguese Camino is really beautiful. I know some of the places because I have family in Galicia, and I've been there with car, not by doing the Camino,
yeah.
and those are really beautiful views, really beautiful towns. Also, all the north of Portugal is really it. It deserves going there, and doing the Camino Portuguese also gives you another way of doing the Camino.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Francisco, for your time today. And I hope that you have a buen camino on your next camino. When you're going to be walking that one?
I starting, I think, middle of September. I don't remember the 14th or the 15th. So
Okay.
it's at the well, a la vuelta de la esquina. It's next month.
Yeah, it's next month. Yeah, my wife and I were starting the French Camino on September the 14th.
Oh, we can. Well, nearly
Yeah.
the same dates. You really enjoy that because I think September and May are some of the best months to do the Camino because time isn't as hot as in June, July, or August, and there is also enough sunlight hours, and you'll really appreciate it. Buen Camino, Efraín.
Yeah, buen camino. Thank you very much.